Hello, and welcome to the Spread NESN's Football Picks podcast for Week 10 of the NFL season. I'm NESN.com's Mike Cole, joined once again, and as always, by Ricky Doyle. Ricky, how are you this week?
I'm doing excellent after that little hype music that we just played to get in here. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, we were just listening to Limp Bizkit, which is a perfect way to get hype for a podcast recording.
Yeah.
Where we'll talk about
Turn it back to 99 real quick and get in there.
Yeah, I mean, this is a deep dive for a podcast that doesn't exist yet, but 1999, I might just do an entire podcast about 1999. It was maybe the greatest year of my life.
I mean, especially in this region,
right? Yeah, right.
You know, like that. Yeah, that was the sweet spot in terms of your formative years as a youth. Playing baseball and whatnot, and the pop culture back then. Man,
it was as good as it gets. Yeah, it was
the Attitude Era.
Era, TRL. I mean, the Red Sox, the All-Star game is here. It's the center of the universe.
Yep.
Probably other stuff going on. I don't know. We'll look into that, and we'll report back at some point. But yeah, we're here to talk about the NFL, not 1999. We'll maybe work it in as we go.
Could be some trends that relate to it.
Yeah.
Y2K.
I'm just going to be...
How about that hysteria, by the way?
That's true. That's a good point. At the end of the year. Yeah.
Oh, really dodged that bullet.
Yeah, that's a... we don't need to get down on Y2K, but it is, in hindsight, a ridiculous fear that we're like, the computers are just going to stop working. Like the smart people must have been like, guys, no.
What's the more ridiculous fear? Was the Y2K bug, or when we got to 2012 and there was all the talk of the Mayan calendars? And
I think the Mayan calendar one messed me up more because I remember maybe I learned this in 1999. The Mayans were pretty legit when it came to their clocks and their calendars. A lot of that still exists. So they were right about a lot. So I thought that was a legit thing. Like, I remember on that day being like, well, there's a chance that this thing goes kaput. I think in 99 into 2000 with the Y2K thing, I think I might have already been in bed, like asleep. Yeah. I didn't really care.
That's true. We were a little bit younger. But also, you know what? Like, looking back, it's kind of wild. It's just like the whole premise, right, was that just like the clocks weren't going to be able to handle it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the smart people must have been like, you morons.
Yeah.
Like, no, we figured this out. Like, trust us. Like, this is not something we're going to... Everything's just
like the cuckoo clock, like the bird's just not going to come out when the clock hits midnight.
All of a sudden, you have no money because the bank's computer broke. Like, I tell you what.
You didn't have those problems when you went from the 18s to the 19s, though.
Simpler problems, though. Like, how much would you kill for a Y2 scare at this point in your life? This is nothing compared to...
We're dealing with Y2 daily, really, at this point.
Our life
things that are much more serious than the Y2K bug on a daily basis. So, yeah. You know what? Looking back, like, if all things being equal, like, get the juices flowing a little bit. I'm not saying Y2K was a good thing, but... You know, it kept you on your toes. It kept you honest.
A bad thing.
It kept you honest and made you really level set before you went into the new century. So, I think we came out better.
I think there's also probably something to be said for the fact that, like, had it ended.
It hardened you.
Had it ended at that point, like, at least you could have gone out listening to End Together now. Like, I think tie a bow on this. Like,
because everything, as we just mentioned, was so great in 99 that it was like, if this is it, if stuff really does hit the fan here, we're in a good place. We had a good run. Good run. Granted, it was only 10 years or so for us. But
would have been awesome had the entire world just gotten kaput and, like, enough kind of stayed around. Like, I don't know, the equivalent, the 1999-2000 version of Fossils. Yeah. Hundreds of years from now gets dug up or, like, rediscovered, and it's like Limp Bizkit, and people are like, wow, this was the main music of the time.
Imagine that, though, if literally just like computers and stuff just stopped working. Like, everybody comes out unscathed, like, physically. So we went back to, like, hunting for food, and it just became this very, very, like, barbaric society.
Before we get into our Week 10 NFL picks, which is really the reason we're here, do you know what the number one song in America was for the end of 1999? Classic guitar riff, I guess, is the biggest.
I got nothing.
Smooth, Santana and Rob Thomas.
Ooh.
So that would have been a good way to go out, too.
I saw Santana last year in concert.
How was he?
It's awesome.
Sounds about
right. I went in Chicago, or like a venue right outside of Chicago, and it just so happened to be playing on a weekend that I was there for Red Sox Cubs, actually. And so we popped into Santana, and yeah, it was great.
Would be a perfect way to go out. Just smooth playing. It seems like the perfect way to
Rob Thomas not there, though. That was but anywho.
Yeah.
What else is on that list? Anything good?
Yeah, I'm trying now. I'm like looking into. I got down the well of like top 10, just singles. I mean, you've got "Kiss Me" by Sixpence None the Richer. "Believe" by Cher was a number one. "No Scrubs," TLC, a great song. "Livin' La Vida Loca," Ricky Martin, of course. "If You Had My Love," Jennifer Lopez. I mean, this is just Wild Wild West had a run on there with Will Smith featuring Drew Hill and Cool Mo D. And then that was usurped by Genie in a Bottle. So, I mean, that's as good as life gets.
I feel like a lot of these, a lot of the stars that you just mentioned are like circling back into the headlines recently. Like, Will Smith like,
got
he's
slapped. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ricky Martin, what's he?
Ricky Martin, he's on tour right now. I believe.
Is he?
I think he was recently in Boston.
Very good. Did you see him in Chicago?
I did not see him. Santana was, unfortunately, I believe, hospitalized like a week after when I saw him. I think he's all right now, though.
Santana with Ricky Martin would have been kind of interesting.
I think it's Ricky Martin, Enrique Iglesias, and Pitbull.
Well, from September 4th, September 11th, 1999, Enrique Iglesias, Palamos, number one.
Right. See, they're all it's all circling back now. Christina Aguilera, was she in the news recently? No, Britney Spears has been in a big time way.
She also owned the number one hit for 2 weeks, "Baby One More Time," earlier in the year.
All right. So.
Right around the Super Bowl.
So it's they all had another run in them for newsmakers.
Super Bowl 32 was early in 1999. The Denver Broncos beat the Green Bay Packers. Anyway, I went 7-7 last week. You went 8-6 in our full picks at NESNbets.com. Now we will transition into week 10 as we keep talking about. We will do our 3, 2, and 1 unit bets for the week. And then we'll get our full picks again on SNBets.com at the end of the week, Thursday. This is a bad week of football. This is as bad as it gets. The standalone games this week, you have Cincinnati and Chicago on Thursday night. You have the Patriots in Colts on Sunday morning from Germany. Jets, Raiders on Sunday night. And then Broncos, Bills, a game that does have an aesthetic that I kind of am looking forward to on Monday night, but a game that does not look good. What's the game that you want to watch this? Like, what? I have 2 of them circled, and that's this is a good.
Well, this is funny coming off a week where I thought last week was very strong in terms of. I mean, maybe not necessarily in how it played out, but going into the week, I was pretty fired up about it. But then you look around at after the dust settled, and it was just wall to wall bad quarterback play. Really,
disgusting.
Like that's kind of where we're at. It's like we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of just getting starters out there, which we kind of touched on last week. But to your initial question, let's see. As I look at the slate here, I would have to say that the most interest for me is this 49ers Jaguars.
Yep, that was one of them.
And the other being, I guess I'm kind of in on Lions Chargers as well.
One. Yep, those are the only 2 ones I have circled.
But yeah, aside from that, it's kind of whatever. Big week for unders last week as well.
We're back, yeah.
Which speaks to the quarterback play. You know,
so, I mean, we can get it. We'll, at the end of this, instead of show and teller football cards, we're going to do just a quick check-in, mid-year check-in on how things went for us with our preseason picks. But I guess, like, if you're looking for a Super Bowl pick or a Super Bowl winner or something you want to bet, I mean, we talked about this a little bit last week, too. You might as well just look at the best quarterbacks and lock in all of those while you still can, because who's knocking off Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, other than each other? Like, you know what I mean? There's not a team that kind of just sneaks in, and like every team, it feels like a good chunk of the playoff field is going to be the 2022 Giants.
Yeah. So that's why, like, looking back at before the season, like, especially in the NFC, whereas once you got past that first group, it's like, well, maybe you can find a second-tier NFC team that can go on a little bit of a run. But without the quarterback, that's just not going to happen. Like, you might go on a run to get there. You might make the dance, but you're quickly going to be escorted to the door. Like in the case of, like, I don't know, like the Saints or somebody like that.
Yeah, right.
Like, there's only so far you can go.
Yeah. It feels like there's a lot of Saints out there.
And there's a lot of teams that once you remove that quarterback, they just really start to bottom out. I mean, this past week was just some of the names that were starting in games. I mean, it started on Thursday night when you had Will Levis versus Kenny Pickett to get the ball rolling.
I tell you, we're going to be...
And they weren't even that terrible relative to, like, what it could have been.
Well, like, I think we're going to be talking about, in January, a wild card or divisional round game between, like, the Commanders and the Eagles.
Yeah, you know with a spread that is very, very high. Yep. But, I mean, at this point, like...
It's a bad example because it's in the division, but, like, a team like the Commanders that doesn't even look like a playoff team right now. But
yeah. I think it's, like, what kind of complicates matters from a betting standpoint, it's like, how low does the total have to be for you to start to get scared away from taking the under? Because you're starting to see.
I don't want to tip my hand, but
all right, because I mean you're starting to see totals in the mid 30s and such this year, and even then it's like I don't know how to justify getting to a point where it exceeds that in a lot of cases. I mean, last week we had Sam Howell versus Mac Jones, that Levis Pickett game, Josh Dobbs replacing Jaron Hall going against Taylor Heineke, Clayton Tune, Brett Rippon, Tyson Bagent, Bryce Young giving the ball away to a Gardner Minshew-led Colts team, Tommy DeVito versus Aiden O'Connell. What are we doing?
6 games this week with a total of 40 or under. And if you want to knock it down to 41, the number becomes even more ridiculous.
Like, we're getting into... This is the beginning of November, and we have totals that are... we used to only see when we were getting 50-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
And even then, it's like, well, I don't know if I have, I don't know if the cojones to go over it.
I know.
So that was sort of, just watching those games on Sunday, it's like there's a lot of bad quarterbacks playing right now for one reason or another, and contributed to a lot of the unders. Unders, what, 11-3 in week 9?
Sheesh.
Unders 83, 52-1 this season. It's 61.5%. That's the highest through 9 weeks since 1991. To go back to the 90s talk, that was when we were just getting things going there. And then primetime unders, which we've talked about a few times on this show, continue to just be profitable bet as well. So.
Yep. I just Googled, was 1999 the best year of all time, just to see.
Sometimes I will say, though, with like the bad quarterback play, you kind of fall ass backwards into a sneaky, entertaining game. Like, it's one thing when you get the bad quarterback going up against a legitimate team, like the Cowboys and Giants this week, for instance. Like, no interest in that because that's just obviously very one-sided. But like,
and familiar.
You look, but you look like the Minnesota Atlanta game. Like, a lot of bad quarterbacks are involved, but it got sneaky entertaining at the end.
Yeah, I guess the better way to look. I mean, Stroud's good.
Chicago, New Orleans, like it was kind of
even Houston, Atlanta, or no,
Tampa.
Tampa. You know, that to be like, what, 39-38? So, which I guess kind of flies in the face of the entire discussion, but you know what I mean? It's, Okay. Let's get to our pick. We've wasted enough time. What's your 3-unit pick?
3-unit pick. I'm going to take the Seahawks laying 6 points versus the Commanders. This is a situation where I think it's a pretty soft landing spot for Seattle. Granted, Geno Smith needs to be better. Coming off really his worst game since he's been in Seattle. He's had 8 turnovers, 6 interceptions, and 2 fumbles lost in his last 4 games. Had 15 turnovers all of last season. So, I'm not going to give him a total free pass, but you do look at the stretch that he's, of defenses he has faced. Obviously, Baltimore this past week, Cleveland the week prior, both 1 and 2 in terms of defensive DVOA. Faced Cincinnati in that 4-game stretch. They're coming on a little bit defensively. A lot of pressure faced last week against Baltimore. Now you're going up against a Washington defense. It's 29th in DVOA. He's gotten torched on several occasions in recent weeks. Granted, they did not when they played the likes of the Patriots, but that's a whole different story that I'm sure we'll get into later. And he just traded away their 2 top edge rushers. So, Washington is clearly mailing it in, and the Patriots just weren't really able to capitalize on that. Washington also struggles against the run, 27th in run stop win rate. I think Seattle should be able to get some yards on the ground, especially what I presume will be a better game script than they had to deal with against Baltimore falling behind early. So I think the Washington offense is still kind of whatever, so the defense of Seattle should be able to get back on track. And then just generally speaking, like the Seahawks are one of those teams returning home after a game where you kind of throw away the tape. Pete Carroll, 47, 29, and 4 against the spread coming off a loss. That's a team much like the Ravens, I guess, where, you kind of expect them to be coached well enough, have their ducks in a row after a game like that to come back and take care of business. I just think that this is a good get-right spot for them.
Yeah. I like Sam Howell.
I'm all right with Sam Howell, yeah.
Throws a good ball.
Take him over Mac Jones.
Yeah, of course.
And I said this about a month ago. Like, at least you see something with him, right? Like, this is a toughness there.
I mean, there's that 24-yard scramble, and they needed 23. Like, there was the boneheaded pick was bad. But, like I said, throws a good ball.
Is it really the perfect encapsulation of Sam Howell, too? Because there's, like, I think you're going to get some of that. Like, the toughness, like, you could see a team rallying behind him. Ultimately, it's like, is he talented enough?
I think, like,
I don't know.
I think coincidentally, he's like a better version of Heineke.
Sure, yeah.
Slightly better. So, no, I think that's, the more I think about it, like, I wish I should have like a little notepad here. Seattle, they fall behind early. Live bet them before it gets too out of hand. Like, they feel like that. Now that I think about it, like, if they take away their run game earlier, they more so than most teams are going to suffer. They're not built to climb back into a game as we saw.
Yeah, that's.
All right, my 3-unit pick. I have the Cincinnati Bengals currently laying, hopefully this hasn't changed, 7 points at home against Houston. Texans, very nice win last week. Cincinnati, though, looking like a Super Bowl contender. Feeling really good about getting my 17-1 locked in there. Those numbers did get adjusted after Sunday night. So I was quick to make that wager on Tuesday afternoon after we spoke. So I've got Cincinnati in the bank for 17-1. I wish I could even done it earlier because they've clearly gotten right. You look at the fact that they've won 4 straight, including their last 2 against San Francisco and Buffalo, 2 teams that are believed to be over there, believed to be 2 of the best in the NFL. You look at what they've been able to do. I think it's pretty clear that Joe Burrow is finally healthy. There's a lot of stats out there about how they're throwing the ball more now. He is not having to get it out as quick. Like, they're allowing, or maybe it's the other way around. I forget. There was just
a lot of
like anvils falling through the sky outside. It's like
it's a Y2K bug.
Acme. Yeah, it's Charlie Steiner banging on the door with a baseball bat.
Mark McGuire is just taking a hack and
follow me to freedom.
Computer screen.
So, I mean, obviously the Jamar Chase thing is concerning. I thought this was a great quote. Somebody asked him on Monday after the Sunday night game how he's feeling. He said, quote, "I'm alive. That's the best thing I can say. That's the best thing right now." Which is a very relatable sentiment. I think that's affecting the line a little bit. The look ahead on this was, if you go back a couple of weeks, I think 9.5, even maybe 8.5. It was definitely 9.5 in the offseason. I don't know if Jamar Chase on his own is worth 2.5 points to the spread. Maybe there's some love for Houston because of how good they looked with Stroud last week against Tampa Bay. But I thought this note from Mike Sando at The Athletic was actually really kind of interesting and maybe not sustainable. Houston won despite finishing the game minus 15.6 EPA on defense and special teams. That was the worst in the entire league for week 9. Since 2000, teams finishing between minus 17 and minus 14. I know those are kind of hard to conceptualize, but teams that sucked that bad in one game on defense and special teams won 18% of the time, 95, 432, and 3. Manning, Brady, Rodgers, Breeze, Mahomes, and Rivers accounted for 28 of those 95 wins. Maybe he is one of those guys at some point. I just think that they got away with one last week a little bit. And I think going on the road now to play Cincinnati, even if Chase can't go, I mean, T. Higgins looked great on Sunday night. They're rolling. This is a tough one. Also, Cincinnati defense, this is from Pro Football Focus. Since week 5 is allowing a better EPA play per play figure than it did the previous 2 seasons, ranking 6th in scoring drive rate allowed. Only the Saints have forced more turnovers in that time. So they're coming together on every aspect of the sport, of the game. And I think this is a tough ask for the Texans. I like what they're doing. Stroud looks like the real deal. This just kind of feels like a wake up call against a much better team.
What a bad beat too for anybody on the Houston side of that last week. that was the taking the knee on the untimed down 2-point conversion.
Well, like that's the other too is like they had the kicker issue. Like it's so maybe the special team thing's a little the numbers swayed, but
what the hell happened to Tampa's defense in that game?
We're gonna maybe get that a little bit.
Oh, all right. I'm glad because I have plenty of questions.
Yeah, I think there was one very telling quote from a very important person in that organization that doesn't make me feel good about.
Yeah, but to your point about Cincinnati, like, what week were we talking about that where we looked at the Joe Burrow MVP odds, which I'm sure we'll get into here in a little bit as well, and we're like, there's a path. There's a path there. Like the window was closing on your opportunity to get in there, like we talked about with the Super Bowl odds last week.
I do it right now.
But it was like, like this is. It's very clear that their early season struggles could be attributed in large to what he was dealing with. And then you looked across the board and you're like, talent's still there. The offense is still, when he gets up to par, is going to be as explosive as it was last season. I think the one thing that was like holding me back a little bit was they do play in a tough division. Yep. Like you're going up, and in any given week, you're going to play a defense that is top 10.
Yep.
It maybe I mentioned earlier Baltimore and Cleveland being 1-2 in DVOA. But yeah, obviously Pittsburgh as well. So it's just that's the one thing with them. It's like if they're in a different division, I think I'd be a little more in on them for the long haul. But yeah, I mean they're going to be right there. Like that division is going to come down to the final couple weeks.
I just bet Burrow at 9-1. Still, it's much lower. I'm missing it. Like
it was. I mean, as recently as 3-4 weeks ago, it was like 22-1. I want to say.
And if I think there might be a little bit of value left because going on a run without Chase is like the sort of narrative that you need to kind of win that award sometimes, right? So like if they rattle off 3 straight wins without him and he looks great, it's kind of just continuation of where he was. But you can sit there and write that narrative that he didn't have Jamar Chase for part of it. Like I think it looks a lot better. So, and then he gets down to what I think Mahomes is down under like 3-1 or whatever. So, and I don't think there's anybody who's close to a short shot. We'll get into this a little bit later, but
yeah, you don't want to place a CJ Stroud MVP.
Not yet.
MVP bet.
If I'm wrong about this one, maybe we'll get back. But what's your 2-unit play?
2-unit. I'm gonna take the Lions laying 1.5. Going to SoFi to take on the Chargers. Good spot for the Lions, obviously coming off the bye. Big time rest advantage, especially when you consider the Chargers coming off a short week after playing on Monday night. Cross country trip going back west for this game. Also a spot where they're coming off the back-to-back wins, but I mean you face the Tyson Bagent led Chicago Bears and Zach Wilson on Monday night. Prior to that, they had the back-to-back losses to Dallas and Kansas City. I think the Lions, I thought it was a big win for them in Vegas going into the bye after the previous week getting smoked by the Ravens. From a matchup standpoint, I think this could be another big Jahmyr Gibbs game. Chargers have allowed the second most receptions and receiving yards to running backs this season. Feels like the Lions are figuring out how to incorporate him into their offense a little bit more. Chargers, in general, brutal against the pass, particularly over the middle. Detroit, 5th in yards after the catch this season, so Amon-Ra St. Brown could cause problems to that defense. And I think with the Chargers, like their path to victory, aside from obviously Justin Herbert playing well, which he actually was pretty limited on Monday night, but generally speaking, it's if that pass rush can get home, which they've flustered these second and third tier quarterbacks that just don't have the talent to make up for something like that. Detroit 3rd in pass blocking according to Pro Football Focus. So I don't think they're going to be overwhelmed quite as much. Maybe this turns into a shootout. But this just feels like one where, the Chargers are riding high after their 2 wins, and then they go up against a team that's clearly better than them. And if I'm only laying 1.5 points, I'll take the Lions.
It's an interesting pick. I don't know how to feel about the Lions. I keep going back and forth. Didn't like them at the start of the season. They've looked really good at times. Consistency feels like an issue for them.
For both of these teams, right?
Yeah, that's
like
fair.
It's kind of you're kind of still trying to figure out what both of these teams are. Like I think for me, it's just I think the Lions are better. Like I think it's a very simplistic way of looking at this game, but it's just like these two teams are in similar spots as far as like in that next level of the AFC and NFC respectively, sort of trying to prove themselves. And so far, I just feel like the Lions have had the more impressive resume. Feel more built to last, probably because of what they're able to do defensively. I feel better about their chances in the long run this season than the Chargers.
Fair enough.
This is coming from a guy who whiffed on his preseason Chargers bet. So.
Yeah, that was not the best. My 2-unit play, I told you I'm doing this every week. I'm going back to it until I lose. Taking the under in the Packers-Steelers game. This number's set at 37.5. We're going under. Said last week we're riding it till the wheels fall off. Took the under in the Packers-Rams game. It was 39.5.
I circled this as well.
20-3, the final score. This number is stupid low. It's so low. But again, now 5 of the last 6 Green Bay games have seen 35 points or fewer scored, including the last 4. They've gone 6 straight games without scoring more than 20 points. And you look at, too, by DVOA, this is the best defense they've faced all season. Steelers, number 6 DVOA defense. Against top 10 defenses this year, the Packers have scored 17 points, 20 points, and 10 points. 20 points feels like an outburst. I meant to go back and look and see if there was a defensive score in there or something, because that just feels like, I don't know how they get to 20 against a good defense. But you also look at the fact they may be running out of banged up Christian Watson. That was a wild thing. Christian Watson had a great catch late in that game on Sunday against the Rams. Left the game with I think it was a back, chest, and a potential concussion, which I've never seen. You got 3 for 1 on one play.
It's a game of operation.
That man is not. I don't want to like brittle and soft feels like, but he's a slender man. So I can see he got. It was a great play. Talent's there. Just got to put it together consistently. But again, if he's banged up going up against that secondary, that's a tough ask. The Steelers pass rush obviously pretty good to say the least, and the Packers offensive line still has issues. Packers have to go on the road here. I mean, maybe the Steelers laying I think it's 3 is a good play here, but the Packers defense has come around a little bit. They've at least held their own against bad offenses. They haven't allowed more than 24 points in the last 4 games. They're averaging 16 points allowed per game. And not a murderer's row of offenses in there, but again, this is not a great offense for Pittsburgh. Matt Canada is Matt Canada. Both these teams play at a slower pace offensively. It feels like a 20-10 game for one of these two teams. So we'll go under the 37.5 here, and we'll just keep riding it until, like I said, until the wheels fall off.
All right. Yeah, this is one when I first looked at the schedule.
It's like I was hoping you didn't put it in there.
It was very close. It was on my short list when I was rearranging games.
Sure, of course.
That was there. But, like, it's exactly what I'm talking about from the beginning, where it's like, how low, hypothetically speaking, how low does that total have to be for you to go on the other side of it?
35.
Feels like a good cutoff, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's, yeah.
And even then, I would think
because, like, I mean, Green Bay is going to get
something else.
If you get 17 points out of them, it's like that's sort of the number that keeps coming to mind with them. It's like,
and I think there's
17-point threshold.
I think there's enough talent. The scheme can be good for them to put it all together, but for mounting evidence,
they did everything in their power too in the beginning of that game to let the Rams hang around. But
the first half under is probably
Brett
more of a play too. Like they just can't score in the first half. They finally scored a touchdown this past week, but I think the score is like 7-3 at halftime. It's awesome. It's just a lot of.
All right.
What's your 1-unit play?
1 unit. So I mentioned a little while ago that Cleveland and Baltimore being 1-2 in defensive DVOA. You know who number 3 is?
No.
Jacksonville.
Oh, okay.
Jacksonville. In terms of overall DVOA, they're 6th behind Baltimore.
The numbers always
Kansas City,
the Jaguars.
San Francisco, Detroit, Buffalo. Exactly. That's my point. We've had this conversation, I feel like, for 2 years running now. We're like, yeah, they're like these analytical darlings. Yeah. And for some reason, I can't get there with them. Or at least, like, this might be the week where it's like, yeah, I got to see it this week. If you don't have it this week, then I'm out on you forever. So I'm taking the Niners. I'm laying the 3 points against Jacksonville. I think with the 49ers, too, you're going to start to see towards down the stretch here, like, their defense hasn't really been as good as we've seen in the past, whereas the offense was sort of carrying them. I think you're going to start to see that level out a little bit and maybe start swinging in the other direction. Because I think ultimately this team is still built around, well, outside of like the offensive playmakers around Brock Purdy, like that defensive, the defense has carried them for years now. And, they go out, they bolster it at the trade deadline. I think you're going to see the identity of this team shift a little bit. But I think from a coaching standpoint, they're ultimately going to be well positioned going into the playoffs. So I know they've lost the 3 in a row, but the bye came at at the perfect time for them. I think they come out of that strong. You combine that with the concerns I still have about Jacksonville, I guess particularly on offense. It's just one of those ones where it's a short number between two good teams, so I'm just going to take the better team. It's kind of similar to the Chiefs and Dolphins
very
last.
Easily make the argument that you just take the points.
What do you mean?
You're two good teams, a short number. Then why would grab?
Yeah, because I'll take the better team. But
if they're both good, then why not take the point?
Because they're not good enough.
Well, now you're making exactly. But you made it sound like I was
I'm viewing this kind of like I did with the Chiefs and Dolphins game last week, where those are two good teams. The Chiefs are better. So I'm just gonna lay the points. It's just whatever. It's a short enough number that it's whatever.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I just thought it was funny the way you said it was funny. When I was looking at the numbers, doing the whole guessing my lines, I had it 5.5. This felt like a 5.5, and I think it even opened at 2.5. But now 3, not as much value there, but still, I think it's.
Yeah, I was poking around when I was sending this to you earlier. I was really hoping that it would get down to 2.5. I waited a little bit to send it. Maybe it'll get back down to 2.5.
I probably would have had this on my card too, had you not sent over your pick.
This is one of those games. Yeah, I'm gonna hear a lot from. I'm sure there'll be plenty of sharps on the Jaguars side of things. Yep. I'm gonna hear all week about why you need to be on the Jacksonville side of things. And this is kind of the point I was trying to make, where it's no, because San Francisco is still better. I don't care what the hell you tell me. My eyes have told me thus far that Jacksonville is going to, when they start facing better competition, is going to crumble, whereas I feel much better about the San Francisco side of things.
Or this turns into, was it last year, that Cowboys game that Jaguars had? Didn't they beat the piss out of the Cowboys? Or was that a late score? The pick 6 against Dak?
Oh, yeah.
Was that last year?
I
think that was a similar spot, right? Where it's how much do we trust this Jaguars team? And
I got to look at their schedule.
Came in and it was just, 40-30. It was overtime. That's right. It was a pick 6 in overtime. So I think that's a similar. Maybe it's not similar at all.
So I will tell you right now, if Jacksonville wins this game on Sunday, I am circling Tennessee for next week.
Okay. There you go.
So that's who they host Tennessee next week. If we get a big Jacksonville win in this, I will be looking to fade them next week.
Okay. Speaking of Tennessee.
Write it in pencil, though. I might want to erase it.
Yeah, that's probably a smart move. Speaking of Tennessee, I have the Titans. 1-point road underdogs at Tampa Bay. That Tampa Bay team we talked about earlier. This is one of those ones where it's when I'm writing it down, it's I'm being such a square and overreacting to what I just most recently saw. I thought the Titans did a tremendous job with Will Levis on Thursday night in Pittsburgh. They didn't win that game, but as a Packers fan, watching that offense operate, it's this doesn't seem that difficult to put your young quarterback in a position to win. Guys were open, they schemed stuff up. There's a lot worse safety valves than Derrick Henry. It looked like they got him some easy throws against a pretty good defense. Tampa Bay's defense also theoretically good. In terms of DVOA, I think they're middle of the league. They obviously have some talent. They just gave up 470 yards. And this is the thing. Todd Bowles called the loss devastating. Todd Bowles never says anything. Todd Bowles called it devastating. I wonder how they're going to be able to react to that. And again, the Titans didn't win, but they have to feel pretty good about themselves coming off of that game. They were very competitive. It looked competent. A tough, borderline scheduled loss for them, and it goes the way it goes. I think you get the huge rest advantage here coming off of Thursday night. They'll not only get more time to get, recover and recuperate, but they're going to get more time to get Levis, comfortable in the system. They're going to be able to probably download more stuff. And then meanwhile, you got Tampa Bay. They went down to the wire in a long game, not feeling good about themselves, not really sure where they're going, what there is to feel good about. So I just think the Titans going to Tampa and maybe win this game. And this is the kind of game that this just feels like a Vraibel win. It just feels like a good spot for a rookie quarterback to get a really nice win. I just trust the operation more on Tennessee's side. It's basically a pick. And again, there's probably some good numbers. I haven't really looked into this, but an AFC team playing an NFC team, the AFC has been so much better in these situations. It feels like all season. So I like that as well. So I'll take the Titans as 1-point dogs on the road at Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'm looking at Tennessee's losses. So obviously, in addition to Pittsburgh, it's been New Orleans in week 1, which was at very low scored, 16-15. They also lost to Cleveland, Indianapolis, and Baltimore. And like for a team that has the offensive issues that they have, like you can understand why they'd just be overmatched by a team like Baltimore or Cleveland. Like at the end of the day, they're just not going to be able to put up the points. But in a game like this, where it's much more comparable from a talent perspective,
their defense has been pretty good this year.
Right? Yeah. So it's like, you know, when they're in these games against the likes of Tampa Bay or last week Atlanta,
New Orleans, Atlanta,
you know, they had that good Cincinnati when they beat the Chargers as well. So like they're gonna be in there. You know, they're gonna be in there. And I'm with you. I liked what I've seen from Levis so far. Obviously, that anybody can like when you throw 4 touchdowns in your debut. But I mean more so like last week. Like he looked good. He looked confident.
Yep. Ton of tape now on him, relatively speaking. So maybe that is an issue. But I don't know. It helps when you got DeAndre Hopkins. Like,
yeah, I think just Tampa stinks, right? They're like,
I think so. There's nothing to feel good about.
You know, they won the 3 out of 4, but like the signs were there too. It was almost, it felt very like the Giants last year. Remember, like, and they came out like a house on fire, and just there was every red flag in the book was just waving.
Are you fading them all year? The Giants?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't feel good about my pick now.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, because they fell apart at the end of the year. They barely...
technically, but they...
Yeah, they barely snuck into the playoffs. That was would they start 5-0?
Yeah, I don't think they were very good. And I think this year, obviously, is backing that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's that. We're halfway through the season just about. So we figured we'd kind of check in on some preseason picks. See how they're going.
You gonna watch the Germany game this week?
What's that?
You gonna watch Patriots in Germany?
I'm gonna try to, yeah. I'm all in on like the fact that Bill Belichick could get fired this week. Like that's an interesting storyline.
How about the tie into our Titans talk into this? That report from was it Ben Volen had Vraibel being the home run pick for Robert Kraft or whatever. Yeah, what do you think of that?
And then also Caserio was mentioned as a potential GM candidate.
I'm out on it.
What?
I'm out on it.
I don't get it at all. Like,
right.
I guess I understand. It just feels like the path of least resistance. It does not seem like strong decision making, like or leadership. You're not doing the work in making a decision based on all of the evidence. It's just trying to rely on something that you think you know. And it kind of fits the mold, right? Like, if you go back to the fact that they had Parcells, like, and I guess the Pete Carroll thing was a bit of a departure, but, you know, hiring Belichick is basically hiring Parcells. So, like, this thing goes back decades.
Right.
And it's just been and it's worked. It's obviously worked, right? They've the greatest run in maybe the NFL history for the last 2 decades. But it's crashed so badly, you have to be like, let's maybe just, if there's ever time for a hard reset, it's now. Like you can't keep cobbling this together. It's so bad. No one ever expected to get this bad. You can't bring in a defensive-minded head coach, whether it's Gerard Mayo or Mike Vrabel, and just be like, you need a complete flush of the system.
So that's my thing. If you got eyes for Mike Vrabel, who I think we would agree is a very good NFL coach.
Love Vrabel.
If that's sort of where you're leaning, then just roll with Gerard Mayo, because I think that you're probably gonna I don't know how much of a difference there's gonna be between the two from like a Patriots culture standpoint, which is why I think you just need to completely change course and go down with some young guy coming up through either an offensive coordinator or somebody from the college ranks. Like you just need a hard reset from the Patriot way, so to speak. And I just feel like with a guy like Vrabel or I guess at least with Mayo, there's the the unknown because you haven't seen him in a head coaching capacity. But I feel like with Vraibel, you're gonna get like a watered down version of the Bill Belichick experience.
I respectfully disagree.
All right.
If I would have to take the two, I would take Vraibel because at the very least, he's done it on his own and he's done it at a high level. Like he's been an NFL coach, a successful one. And it's like,
but I don't think
he
that
falls under the Belichick thing kind of because he played here, but he's not in the coaching tree. So he has the experience. He's been to different places. He was at Ohio State. He was in Houston. Like he's been around the block. He's been far enough away from this thing that it's at least somewhat new. Whereas like all Gerard Mayo has known his entire career since Tennessee is the Patriot.
Yeah,
That's
but I'd rather see it for a couple of years than because I think the ceiling with Vraibel is much lower. Like, because I think that if I don't know,
those teams have not been talented.
Who's to say, like,
Tennessee,
if given the opportunity, Gerard Mayo can't transform the culture there? Like, I just feel like you bring in Vraibel, it's like slapping a Band-Aid on this problem. And what are they going to be? Like, what's best case scenario, Mike Vrabel? Like 10-7, 9-8. Like,
yeah,
I think they turn into the Titans, which is like that's fine, but you're not winning a Super Bowl.
Well, it would be nice if you turn into the Titans with better players because the Titans don't have.
Well, that's ultimately the problem, right? They just don't have any good players.
And I guess
they literally do not have any good players.
And I get what you're saying, and maybe I can acknowledge the fact that there's a ceiling to Vrabel, sure, but like there's a much lower floor, in my opinion, to Mayo, who's
right. All right, I'll give you that. Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like if you're gonna start,
it could be completely over. Mayo could take the job and they could go 3-14.
Yeah.
It could be a replica of this season.
If you're gonna go unproven first time head coach, I'd rather go find a McVay Shanahan disciple, go give it to Ben Johnson, try to pry Lane Kiffin out of Lane Kiffin. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's like
1999 was here.
I mean, that would spruce things up, though.
That'd be sick. That's it.
You might have stumbled into something there,
Now we're
Mike.
talking. Lane Kiffin would be sick.
Lincoln
Riley. I mean, maybe get the 2-for-1 with him and Caleb Williams. Although after this weekend, I don't know if you want. My point is if I'm going untested, I'd rather do it with an offensive guy than a defensive guy, and I'd rather go outside the organization than just trying to run it back. Like if you're gonna go with Gerard Mayo, why not Steve Belichick? You know?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think that's the path to take. But if I'm choosing between Vrabel and Mayo, I think I would just roll with Mayo. But if my options are Mayo versus one of the guys, Lane Kiffin, or one of the guys, not Lane Kiffin, but one of the guys you just mentioned, like then I'm siding with them. I just feel like there's a little like Mayo and Vraibel. Like I just maybe just because they both play for the Patriots, but it just feels like there's a lot of redundancy there. Where it's like if you are going to go outside the organization, like let's go out there and let's completely change course.
Fair.
Anyways, that's a lot of time spent on that whole situation. But I mean, it is like
it's interesting.
It's wild that like.
They're pathetic.
I kind of just blindly picked the Patriots last week because it was one of those things where if you can't win and cover in that situation against like Washington, against a team that had just sold at the trade deadline, Ron Rivera sitting duck, like an offense where, I mean, Sam Howell, we were singing his praises a little while ago, but still, it's Sam Howell at the end of the day. Like
now he's the best player on the field.
Oh, man, it's atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious. They're Patriots for me. I mean, I've been saying this all year. Just from a betting standpoint, it's just a stay away team unless I'm hammering the under in their games. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. There's no talent on that team. No talent whatsoever.
Midway through the season, which preseason take did you really get wrong?
Ooh, are we talking like relative to?
Just going back to our picks, we kind of.
Let me try to. You did send these to me a little while ago, didn't you?
For me, I had my mid-level pick, I think it was. I don't know if we had the most ridiculous nomenclature. My Anthony Richardson to lead the NFL in interceptions, 16-1, probably is not going to get home, but I'm going to give myself a pass on that. And I also think my Kansas City under 10.5 wins, an alternate total, plus 175, doesn't look especially good after.
Yeah, I had Stafford to lead the NFC West in passing yards, and if
that's right. He's probably done for the season.
So
that's tough.
Injury notwithstanding. I guess like my read on the Chargers wasn't great.
You had them to lead the NFL in regular season wins.
Yeah, 30-1. They're like I said earlier. We're still kind of learning what they are, but they're clearly not where I sort of anticipated them being. I thought there was a chance that they actually pushed the Chiefs atop that division this year.
There are two clear options here, one from each of us, as the best picks from our preseason show. Can you guess?
Well, for me, it's going to be Baltimore, Cleveland to finish 1-2, right? I want to pat myself on the back, but Cincinnati, I was very in on Cleveland.
You got to be scared of the Bengals, though.
Yeah, it's like I was saying earlier, like that. Any team in that division, really. That's.
But you had them, Baltimore, Cleveland, exact 1-2. Oh wait, yep.
And your offensive player of the year and defensive player of the year
for not betting
parlay
114-1 with Tyreek Hill and Micah Parsons. I don't know if they're both favored, but
which is I'll pull that up. But that is just like 1-4. That's insanity. Looking back,
it was a parlay, yeah.
Right, like those are. Oh,
kicking myself. I hope it doesn't come home because I don't want to feel like a moron. I tell you what, Foster Moreau, comeback player of the year. I've had better takes than that one. And when he dropped that touchdown pass a couple weeks ago, that was a tough scene for me. Same with the Jaden Reed offensive rookie of the year free pick I gave out.
Offensive player of the year favorite Tyreek Hill, plus 140. Defensive player of the year favorite. It's currently a tie. Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett, both plus 190.
Myles Garrett feels I should just bet Myles Garrett right now, or no? I don't know. I
think the ship might have sailed on that.
Yeah, there's no way to Garrett. I'm rooting very hard for Myles Garrett.
I think mine was Christian McCaffrey pairing him with Nick Bosa, which McCaffrey is still kind of kicking around there. Bosa just. The holdout and all that didn't really work in his favor. He's been kind of slow getting going. But that's where I think the second half of the year.
And we both had Lamar for our MVPs. I don't know. That looks as good as anything else at this rate. It's hard to.
So what do you think? We're looking at the MVP board right now. You mentioned Burrow earlier. At 9-1 right now. Mahomes, the favorite, plus 240. Hurts, plus 320. Lamar, plus 500, Tua plus 650, and then it gets to Burrow. Like, where's the value on the board right now?
Trevor Lawrence 19-1.
Yeah.
Or Tyreek Hill
50-1.
Again, I already bet Joe Burrow at 9-1. I guess that's the one place I would look to start. After that, I don't know. It doesn't feel. Who's the MVP? There's no. It's just a market. Like, it's a market that doesn't really appeal to me. Yeah. Unless you want to, like, I don't know. Maybe just give me Lamar. I'd like at 5-1. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. There's nothing wrong with
Like you, especially at this point in the year, like you can't look too far down the board. Like the Joe Burrow a few weeks ago was about as far as down the board as you could possibly look and have any chance whatsoever of cashing. So, like, I get past Lawrence. I think he's the cutoff for me. Josh Allen at 14-1, maybe. Like, because that's another thing, too, with all the injuries on the Buffalo side of things. If they turn this around and they become Buffalo, it's going to be on his shoulders. Obviously, that offense is still capable of doing big things. So, I think maybe for me, that's where the value is Josh Allen at 14-1.
Yeah, that's And then for our Super Bowl picks, you had the Eagles over the Ravens. That looks very much alive. And I had Bengals over Cowboys. Also look, Bengals over the Cowboys, 44-1 for the match, 75-1 for the start of the year. Now, those two.
I'm going to hold out hope for these picks for the purposes of making one of us look smart. But the more I watch the NFL week in and week out, I'm starting to believe that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be there again.
Probably, yeah.
Like this, to me, we've talked about the old Patriots comparisons, but like now I feel like we're getting into like the mid 2010s Patriots, like the second sort of wave of the dynasty where it was Brady and a collection of kind of whatever and
Brandon LaFell.
Yeah, like the likes of Brandon LaFell and Malcolm Mitchell, but on the defense you had shutdown playmakers across the board. Like I don't think the Chiefs defense is quite at that level yet, but it's pretty clear that unit is more than capable of holding its own. So it's kind of interesting and just like from a roster building standpoint to see how they mirror what the Patriots are able to put together those years.
Definitely a blueprint there. All right, cool. Anything else?
No, I think it's about it.
It's been a delight as always. Thanks Thank you all for joining us.
Good
Check out
download.
NESNBets.com for our picks later.
Limp Bizkit
We're gonna listen to
playlist on Spotify, and then
Bizkit,
download the
Korn.
spread, of course,
Yeah,
right
of
after
course,
that. Corn, Godsmack.
Yeah. All right, cool. That's it for week 10. We'll see you again next week. Goodbye.